last time we did a ahankara bashing party, right? It was every sentence, every word, right? So today, that was kind of just a one-off, because the time before that, remember chapter 1, it was more just kind of reading and telling stories. So this week, we're going to try a more relaxed approach and not be so harsh about the ahankara. Did you guys have any questions at all from last week, or any insights, or anything you wanted to share from chapter 1 before we go to chapter 2?
So I could very much relate to the chapter 1, and there's one particular moment that I feel really like close to, is when you were constantly thinking about the moment when you will give the book to Amma, how she's gonna be so happy about it, you know, and putting the book, like showing to everyone and all that. And I have that, you know, whatever it's coming into my life, in the future, I always think, oh, this, and I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna do great. So I know that probably the ahankara characteristic is I'm special and unique. Mm-hmm. But the problem in that is, if I keep thinking about it, then I'm attached to the result, and obviously it's then very depressed or very sad if that doesn't happen the way I imagine. Yeah. So, is there something practical that I can do to stay positive in what I want to do in the future, but not, you know, overdoing in my head, like, oh, it's gonna be great, and I'm gonna do that, and people are gonna be so proud, and you know, those things.
Yeah, it's good that you have such a good awareness that your mind is doing that, you know? That's really good that you realize it. And it's really also hard to realize what happens when it doesn't work out the way you want, right? That when you come crashing down, because you wouldn't feel like, I wouldn't have felt so depressed if I didn't think it was going to be this amazing result. If I was just like, oh, I'm going to offer it to Amma, let's see what happens, right? But I didn't. I had this whole fantasy. She's going to be like, wow, and you can move to the ashram, come here because you're going to, I mean, it was like, it was so big what I thought, right? Have you tried anything? Have you tried some things already, to practical things?
Because I know that I'm doing that, I try to say, okay, no, just don't think about it, stay in the present. But particularly speaking, it's just so powerful that it automatically just go back again. Yeah, but what if I do that, then I cannot yet find something that really like works.
Yeah. Okay, it's a very good question. And it's also the nature of the mind, right? To be like fantasizing about something in the future, or worrying about something in the future, right? And so it's also hard to, if you say no, it's going to probably try to be rebellious and be like, really? No, really? And it's going to try even harder to do it, you know? Or it could feel guilty and like it's bad, you know? So what I would say is to try to figure out what it is that you're not enjoying about the present. Is it because you don't really want to do that? Like for me, like when I wrote the book, I don't love editing. I was like, I'm writing it once and I don't want to look at it again. I hate editing, you know? And so finally I'm like, let's just hire an editor. Because that part I was like, you know, then I was fantasizing how nice it would be when it's done and all that. But so if there's something maybe that you're not enjoying, you can ask that kind of question, like, why do I have to have this big fantasy about the future? What is it that I'm not enjoying right now? What's bothering me now?
Yeah, it's really interesting when you say that, because I was about to say that I started having this awareness when I was sick for 10 years, and I was 5 of those years I was in bed. And obviously, like, my days were really not good. I was depressed, so I kept thinking about a better life. And I think I did this, you know, samskara. I have now a big samskara that even though now I'm feeling better and I can enjoy my present, but still those things, because I did it for so many years of imagine and thinking about something, you know, else in my mind, that this is still...
That's a very good awareness, Janava. So what I would say is, since you have that awareness, when you catch your mind fantasizing, you can say, oh, this is just a samskara from those 5 years when I was in bed, and my mind had to make that thing up. And then you can talk to your inner child and say, sweetie, you know, we don't have to fantasize now because we're not sick in bed, and life is really good. And then ground yourself with your 5 senses. Say, look, here's the peppermint essential oil. That's here and now. You like that. Look, here's your fiance. That's here and now. He wasn't 5 years ago, you know. Look, you're in Vrindavan. So use your senses, all 5 senses, to bring you here about the things that are good now. But first acknowledge why you're back there. This is a pattern that you did, a defense mechanism or a habit to make you, protect you in a way from getting too depressed those years. It's awesome that your mind was able to do that, right? Because if you didn't, you would get very, very depressed. Very depressed. So you can say, wow, thank God that I had that. My mind was clever enough to fantasize, so I didn't have to suffer so much, pain. And now I don't need that, And so just be compassionate. Instead of angry and saying, no, bad present here now, it's going to be like, no, we're going back even, we're going to go further in the future or something. But it's a good question. Good. Yeah, and let us know how it goes when you try it. Okay, what else? Any other questions or insights from chapter 1 that you guys had? Yes, Vilas?
So in the first meeting, I asked or my question was that it looks as if you actually quite accepted the situation and moved on. What else could you have done better? That was not accepting. And then when I revisited the story, then I think in the very beginning of the first chapter, you made it quite clear that you actually didn't accept her rejection and moved on, because you described the sulking mood there and how depressed you were in the room. And I think these things, you wouldn't have done if you had accepted her rejection as a sign and opportunity to learn and then move on, right?
Yes, that's right. Yeah, I would have been like, oh, she just taught me a hard lesson. Oh, thank you. That was a hard lesson, but I got it. Because if I was thinking, oh, everything that she's doing is helping me learn, helping me grow, even if it's painful, I'd be eager for that. I'd be like, well, she gave me a very direct message. I didn't have to, try to, was it a subtle thing? No, it wasn't subtle. She definitely did not accept my book, clear. So I could have gotten excited about that, even, or at least accepted. You want the mic, Mohin? Oh, you got the mic? Okay.
The question came to my mind. We looked at your first chapter from the point of view of the ahankara characteristics. And I was wondering, did you write this book with this in the mind, that you want to hide the ahankara characteristics, or you just wrote it and then by reviewing you saw, oh, I have this and that ahankara characteristics in the chapter, or did you kept them? Why did you write it in that way you wrote it?
No, I just wrote, these were blog posts. I wasn't thinking, look at my ahankara, these are just my stories. But after, when I analyzed it, and I'm like, what can I find as a theme? And I'm like, whoa, I got a theme. Look at my ahankara. These were just what were happening before I even knew that much about ahankara. When I first learned Vedic psychology, I was very focused on samskaras, because I was a psychotherapist, and I was helping my clients with their samskaras, Later on, when I got these lessons, learning the hard way, I'm like, why are these so hard? Oh, then I learned about ahankara, but I didn't write it so much in that way. But this also was edited, and the editor was asking me questions and pulling out points. So we weaved it through. Compared to the original blog, we added more about ahankara in there. What did you guys think of that analysis, the ahankara analysis last time? It was a lot, right? Every line there's something. Yeah. I won't butcher the whole book up that way, but I just wanted to give you a little experience to see how prevalent the ahankara is, Any other questions from chapter 1, Nyay and Shri? You see there's no ahankara police car here today. It is Shanti today.
So the point you made just now, so I was thinking that the exercise we did in the last book club, it is really helping when I am doing something in my daily life. It it tells me, okay, this is this characteristic you're doing. So it's very helping if that exercise was very helping in order to understand the subtle things about ahankara in my life.
Good.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
So that
Good. Thank you for sharing that. Anything else? Anything online? Anybody want to share anything about chapter 1? Insights or questions? No? Should we go to chapter 2? Ready to roll? Okay, let's go to chapter 2. So chapter 2 starts on page 30. Okay. So for 1 year after my fateful 2013 trip to India, I worked on rewriting the Ayurvedic guidebook with Dr. Chauhan to include his concepts of love and soul. So remember last week, Dr. Chauhan said, yeah, we can write a book together, right? Because I got so burned by by Amma, who's like, did you even have an Ayurvedic doctor look at this? And I was like, actually, no, I didn't. So then I'm like, Dr. Chauhan, will you write with me? Luckily he said yes, but then we had to rewrite it, right? Answering those 2 questions he had. He had one question, what is love? And one question, what is soul? So over about 1 year, we worked on that. I spent every weekend absorbed in writing because my weekdays were consumed by my full-time job as a psychotherapist at a residential psychiatric hospital for kids. One of the professional hazards of being a psychotherapist is fatigue, a phenomenon in which the therapist experiences exhaustion and ultimately diminished compassion due to empathizing with clients over a prolonged period of time. My work certainly demanded a whole lot of compassion. Each and every day required me to listen for hours on end to these innocent, helpless children's stories of their parents' unthinkable abuse and neglect, which weighed heavy on my heart. As a result of the abuse they'd endured, is there some problem? Sounds weird, right? Should I move this? Should I hold it or clip it outside? Okay, sorry guys. Maybe this will be better. Is this okay? I'll try. I don't want it to keep rubbing every word I read. Okay. As a result of the abuse they'd endured, the state of these children's mental health was so degraded that they were deemed unsafe to live in society. They posed a threat to themselves or to others. Consequently, they had to live out their days locked inside a jail-like mental hospital, in which they were watched like a hawk. For them, even going to the bathroom required a security guard escort. So when I worked there, you have to even go in for the job interview, and it was a little surprising, like it was not a nice place to look at, and it was in a very secluded place. You just drive and drive and drive. It's kind of like in the woods, and then when you get there, there's maybe 3 or 4 layers of doors that you have to have a little ID badge and be like beep to get in the first one, and then beep to get in the next one, and beep to get in, So these kids were really locked in tight, and then they were on different units based on either their disorder, their diagnosis, or their age, depending. Like there's one unit called the stingray unit. Do you guys know what a stingray is? It's a fish that if it stings you, it can kill you. It's like it has a stinger in the ocean, and so this is the unit of the teenage boys. So a lot of them had very severe anger issues, and so that was, and what happens is whenever we get a new client, when we get the assignment, then you have to go meet the client, and there's about 15 of us therapists, and we would almost had a niche, you could say, like of different types of clients we were good with, so it'd be a surprise if you got the stingray unit if you're not used to working with teenage boys, Some of us were really good and some of us were not so good or comfortable with that. And then there's another unit of just I forgot what they called, the sea turtles. The sea turtles were the little kids, 5 and 6 and 7-year-old little kids. They were locked in this mental hospital like a jail, the sea turtles. But when you go in there, you would never guess that they're little because of the stuff that they would do even on that unit. But anyway, every unit was a whole different experience. There's a unit of teenage girls also, and it was like almost like a crisis mental hospital where this is where they would be at their worst, you know? And the average stay would be about 6 months. So they're really living there. It wasn't that they're there for a week. And it's not like what you think of when you think of a huge hospital that has all different departments. This was just mental health, just the most severe in the whole country, not the state. You know, out of all the United States, they would fly them here. You know, so these were the severe ones that really medicine wasn't working for. Medicine and therapy wasn't working for. It was very, very, very sad cases, you know. And most of them didn't have even their parents. You know, it was called custody of the state. So they're in the care of the state. And that's about, you know, and so when you get a job there, I was just happy to have a job because when you're a new therapist, it's hard to get a job because you have no experience. And so I was like, oh, yes, I'll work here. Cool, it's a hospital. Wonderful. I had no idea what I was walking into and no experience with this, you know. Before that, I was a grief counselor. I was working with people who had recently lost somebody who died or who were dying, you know. So that wasn't easy either, but this is a whole different kind of not easy, working with these kids, you know. So that's why these kids were deemed unsafe to live in society or even to be around themselves. That's why they had to be locked into this place, you know. Many of them tried to kill themselves or their sister or brother or their family pet, you know, so it was not easy to leave them alone. They couldn't be left alone. They always had to have eyes on them. There was cameras in every room, and then they would give us these sheets, and if you meet with the client, you have to keep that sheet, and if you're meeting for an hour, every 15 minutes you have to put your initials to prove that they're with you, you know, and even when you're walking them and they're like, I need to go to the bathroom, even if you say, yeah, you can go, that you could potentially be fired for that, because if you let them go to the bathroom on their own, that's how they can break out of this place, and none of them want to be here. They're locked in against their will, so you have to like sign the sheet and then stand right outside the bathroom door, you know, and then there's no windows out. It's like all brick, you know, and if they stand there too long, you have to call for help. It's the whole, and then right next to the bathroom was a cafeteria, and I don't know why they did this, but the right along the cafeteria, so they're all waiting in line, right? It was a huge wall of just glass windows, big mirrored glass, and if you look through the window, they had a pool. You know, and my office was on the other side of that. So I had a poolside view, believe it or not, even though the job was so stressful, but I had a poolside view. And these kids, if they had really good behavior, they could get to go with supervision into the pool, you know. But what would happen is they'd walk out of the cafeteria and every day there'd be a fight, huge brawling fight, you know, and at least once a week somebody would punch the window out. You know, and so I'm like, don't put the window back. They replace the window again, they punch out, there's glass all over the place. So I'm just trying to give you a visual of how the place was. It was not easy to work there, you know, to say the least. Okay, so I had ended off saying for them, even going to the bathroom required a security guard escort. It was at this place that the concept I learned in my psychology textbook was brought to life. Children who are abused go on to abuse. So that's a big concept, and that's a samskara, right? If those of you who have learned about samskaras in Vedic psychology, whatever gets put in you, either you're going to do it to somebody else, and you don't even realize it's abuse, because it was done to you, and nobody said, I'm abusing you now. It just was like, you just thought that was normal, that's love, you know? And so either you're going to do it yourself, or you're going to be attracted to somebody who does it to you, you know? And it doesn't have to be the obvious physical abuse. It can be very much more subtle emotional abuse. So how it played out was the children would try to cut themselves, hang themselves, bully their peers, or beat up anyone who crossed their path, including me. For example, one day one of my clients, who at the ripe age of 14 and a proud member of a deadly gang, she scoffed at me. Miss Jessica, I'm not afraid of you. I could take you out easy. You're too soft. What would you do if I tried to beat you up? You know, I could do it, you know. So this girl, first of all, I always say I didn't grow up with any brothers. There's like no male presence pretty much in my life. I only had sisters, and my sisters only had girlfriends. I mean, it'd be like 8 women and my mom. And my dad, like, he was kind of feminine actually. He wasn't like a guy's guy, man's man. He wasn't. So basically really know how to be around like brothers or boys and stuff like that. And I definitely never fought. Like I never got in a fight my whole life. So physical fight. So to me, and then these girls come and they were like tough and they were part of gangs, and their boyfriends killed people. I mean, they were telling me these crazy stories. I'm like, what? And when you're a therapist, you're supposed to be like neutral and be like, oh, well, your boyfriend killed somebody? Oh, that's nice. But I'm like, oh my God. Sorry. It's just too much. Sorry. So it's a lot, to hear these stories. And these are kids. They're little kids, This girl, she was 14. You wouldn't guess if you saw her. She had like blonde hair. She looked totally innocent. But the way she talked, she's like, yeah, and she was part of one of the deadliest gangs in the United States. There's 2 gangs. I don't know if they're around the world or not, but there's the Bloods and the Crips. And she was part of one of those gangs, and she's talking about her boyfriend and how they beat up people and how they stole things and how her boyfriend, what is it called? Carjacking. How her boyfriend killed somebody in the details of the carjacking. And I'm like, oh my God. That's why I had a big thing of candy, right? And that was my emotional support. I'd be like, 1 minute. And then what? Okay. Do you want some? It was so stressful, And then every hour, and they live there. So it's not like my normal, like my private practice, I see somebody for 1 hour once a week, But they live there. I'm getting called all day long, and I have to see them every day. Individual therapy every day for them, and group therapy, So it was a lot, to say the least. Okay. So, and I even would get calls, One of my clients tried to hang herself with her, with her bed sheet. And I had to go see her. So every day there was something, Okay, so this is the one who said she could beat me up. So she asked, what would I do? What would I do if she tried to beat me up? And I'm like, nobody ever asked me that before. I said, I would hide under my desk and call security. This kind of interaction was normal with my patients, testing their limits and expressing their distrust of authority figures, including me, their well-meaning but not well-equipped therapist. Needless to say, my work was very stressful, and I looked forward to the weekends when I could escape and lose myself in writing the Ayurvedic guidebook with Dr. Chauhan. From time to time, Dr. Chauhan and I would talk on the phone to discuss the book. One call with him in particular in November 2014. Oh, that's cool. 10 years from now. 10 years ago. Exactly. Okay, November 2014 was very poignant because I had the extremely good fortune to hear about Babaji for the first time. It was a moment I will never forget. We were wrapping up the call after discussing our book edits. Dr. Chauhan invited me to visit him in India again, like I'd done the year before. I accepted his invitation without hesitation and then automatically started planning how I would visit Amma for 1 week and then Dr. Chauhan for the other week, just like I had done in 2013. Dr. Chauhan abruptly interrupted the chatter in my head by asking me a question that quite frankly changed the entire course of my life. With pinpoint precision, Dr. Chauhan inquired, "What have you learned from your guru Amma in the past 5 years since you've been with her?" You can tell he's Babaji's brother, right? Sharp like a dart, I was caught off guard, and I didn't know what to say. I laughed nervously as I babbled out some bullshit. My mind was desperately searching for something intelligent to say, for I admired Dr. Chauhan, and I wanted him to think I was cool and smart. But I felt stupid and embarrassed because, truth be told, I didn't really have an answer. In fact, I'd never considered that question. I didn't know I was supposed to be learning something specific. I mean, my background, it's not that I'm Indian, it's not that I knew about having a guru. I just kind of fell into having Amma because my friend at the time said, we were both into Ayurveda. And he's like, Amma's coming to New Mexico, we should go see her. I'm like, cool, Oh, they have dosas there and coconut chutney? Love it. And chai all night? Yes, that was it. It wasn't that I was on some quest at that time, So I was basically just going to see Amma because seeing her made me feel better. It was as simple as that. And what's so wrong with that, I wondered. Dr. Chauhan seemed comfortable lingering in the silence, waiting for me to arrive at my response, which I still didn't have. Finally, in an effort to break the awkward silence, I blurted out, "I learned from Amma what love is." Without missing a beat, Dr. Chauhan said, "Oh, really? And so what is it?" I proudly replied, love is when you're kind and caring and compassionate to everyone, like how Amma is. He didn't buy it. And actually, deep down, neither did I. For in those moments of silence, when I was racking my brain for an answer, I realized I hadn't learned very much at all from Amma. Don't get me wrong, I had some very sweet experiences with her, for sure. But I could see that I had not grown since taking initiation from her. Yet at the same time, I didn't want to give up my guru. So I stayed fixed in my position and prepared to argue my point. However, my flimsy answer only prodded Dr. Chauhan, encouraging him to proceed. He advised me to find a teacher who could help me progress spiritually. He said, if you are serious about spiritual life, you need a spiritual teacher. I defended myself. I already have a spiritual teacher who is amazing, so why do you want me to leave her? Dr. Chauhan had hit the nail right on the head with his penetrating question, and he continued with his no-nonsense answer. Because your spiritual teacher is supposed to teach you. Are you studying any scriptures under Amma? Scriptures? No. Why would I need to study scriptures when I have the books of Amma's life stories? They inspire me to be a better person. Isn't that enough? So here's the thing. You know, Amma's a totally different type of guru, and I'm not trying to criticize her at all. Like, I mean, I was fine. I probably would have been fine with her for my life. I had a very nice plan, you know. I would go, when she came to the U.S., I would go to her, you know. We would do kirtan all night, which I loved, you know. And we would dance and sing and eat dosas, and I met nice people. And I would go, she had like different groups all around the U.S. So where I lived in Florida, I found a group in Miami, and we would meet, you know, and it was like satsang, you know. Remember, you know, tell stories about Amma. And read some of her books together. So, you know, I don't want anybody who maybe you're following Amma or she's your guru or anything like that. I'm not trying to criticize her at all. I had a very good experience with her, you know. And like I said, I don't think it's that clear in this book, but it took Dr. Chauhan 1 year. It's not that we had one conversation. I was like, and I defended myself for 3 minutes, and then I'm like, cool, for 1 year, this argument was going on over Amma. You know, and one of my friends, I don't know if he's on the call, but Bart, you know, Bharata, he had already been with Babaji for a few years, you know. And one time, when I came to India, it was Bart and Dr. Chauhan. I felt like a cornered animal, like a caged animal, like because they went on for like an hour in Dr. Chauhan's office, like pummeling me with questions. And I was like, no, because of this, no, because of that, no, because of that, you know. So it's not that I gave up my guru easily or that I just was that, I mean, up until a certain point, but I'm just saying the background of what went on was not an easy thing for me to just drop her, you know. Okay. So, so anyway, the scriptures, no. I said, why do I need scriptures? So Dr. Chauhan said, okay, please do one thing. Just watch one video and tell me what you think. So I said, all right, I can do that. One video. Fine, shut up, leave me alone, you know. So I nodded in agreement, but in my heart I felt defensive and annoyed that he was questioning my guru. Dr. Chauhan either didn't notice my sour mood or maybe he didn't care. Whatever the case, he pressed on, revealing his brother's name, Satyanarayana Dasa, which sounded so elegant, like a ballerina gracefully pirouetting on the stage. To my surprise, just by the sound of his name, I liked him already, yet I didn't even know him. Dr. Chauhan suggested I watch any of his brother's thousands of lectures on YouTube. He advised me to just type in his name, and he spelled it out so slowly. Satya na ra ya na da sa ba ba ji. I remember him doing it, you know, and I'm like, God, this name is so long. Sat what? Sat, you know, I think we were on a WhatsApp call, you know. So I was writing the whole thing out. Now what? I didn't get it at first, you know, writing the whole, there's more to that name, you know. He kept going with the name. I said, okay. And I was really almost going to just throw the paper out. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, what? I'm going to watch a video and all of a sudden then I'm going to go, okay, thank you, great, you know. I thought it was so stupid, but I thought, okay, I'm going to have to talk to him again. And he was being so pushy and relentless that I'll just do it one time, you know. So I don't know what came over me to let down my guard so easily, but that night I did just that. I typed in Dr. Chauhan's brother's name and I watched a YouTube video. Within 1 minute of hearing Babaji speak for the first time, I realized I was listening to a true master. His demeanor was so peaceful that I immediately felt grounded and calm. and he was speaking about relevant life issues that caught my attention. Babaji's words were like the truth serum I had been searching for my entire life. So what happened, you guys, was, I just want to see, I don't want to tell too much of the story if it's already written, but I also want to say, so what happened was, I was living in Florida, and I described the job I had, right? So that job was very, very hard. And in order to get licensed, in order to have a private practice, you have to do more than your master's degree and more than all the hours required just to even be a psychologist or a therapist, right? Then you have to, in Florida, do at least 2 more years or more, hundreds and hundreds of hours under a supervisor to get licensed to practice in private practice. So this place that I was doing it at, they would give you a lot of client hours. You know, you could get licensed in the quickest way possible, basically, but you had to basically kill yourself. It was a lot of hours and a lot of stressful hours, but I wanted to do it, you know. So my life was pretty much just that. And they only gave 10 vacation days in the whole year. So normally you would get more vacation time, plus you'd get all the holidays, Christmas, Thanksgiving, New Year's. You'd get a lot of holidays. You'd maybe get a month or more off in a normal job, but this job, 10 days only. So there was basically no time off. All the therapists were smoking pot and drinking alcohol in their downtime because it was just to let off the steam. It was so stressful, you know. And the therapist in the office next to me, she was working so hard that one day when I went in there, she just looked so bad. I said, "What is wrong with you?" And she had just fainted. She had just come off the ground because the stress was too hard, the work was too hard, she hadn't eaten. So I'm just trying to paint the picture of how special it was to see Babaji. It's calm and just peaceful and talking about life in a way that I could understand. You know, it wasn't something over my head. It was very, very special for me because my life outside of that he was like the lotus and I was in a big pile of mud otherwise, you know. It was a really special moment, you know, for me to see him and hear him. So as a naturally inquisitive person, I had so many unanswered questions about the mind, emotions, love, relationships, death, dying, grief, and the purpose of life. It was amazing to see Babaji just nonchalantly dispensing the answers to my long-standing unanswered questions. His words quenched my thirst and gave me a sense of peace and relief, like a cool glass of coconut water on a hot summer's day. As I drank in the fascinating points of his lecture, I quickly began taking notes in my journal. I kept pausing the video every minute to ensure I had transcribed Babaji's exact words accurately. I had no idea how thirsty I had been for this information and how much it had been lacking in my 24 plus years of education, including 12 years of higher education. So what happened was, when I was listening to that hour, it probably took me maybe 3 or 4 hours because I kept pausing it and writing notes. And I kept pausing it and writing notes. And those notes, actually, when I was home, I was looking for that original journal. I didn't throw it away. I have that journal because I was wondering what's the first video I ever saw, you know? I want to find what that was in those notes. But right away, I was taking notes, you know? And then the very next day I walked in, I started teaching to my students because they were so open. The management was so open to whatever we wanted to do there, because nothing worked. So if nothing, you know what's that saying? If you have nothing, then you have nothing to lose. So in a way, they're like, well, most of these kids are on 10 different medicines. They've been restrained, you know. Sometimes they have to hold them down and put them in these padded rooms because they're too, and give them an injection to, you know, knock them out. It's just, so basically they were open to anything. I implemented essential oils at the whole hospital and implemented the Hypnobadesh at the whole hospital. And so for me, I mean, that came after, but I'm just saying this idea that taking notes, that I had people to tell about it, I'm like, why not? It made sense to me what he was saying. Let's see if it could work, you know? So I was like furiously taking down the notes, and I was actually kind of desperate, I have to say, because that job was so hard and there was no light. There wasn't one smidgen of light there, you know? So when Babaji was saying these things, I'm like, maybe there's some way, one of these kids, it might light them up, maybe. You know, so I was taking these notes kind of fast and furiously. Turbocharged with a newfound enthusiasm, I began sharing the key points from Babaji's YouTube video lecture with my patients at the mental hospital immediately. In therapy group, I read aloud a short quote from Babaji, and then I asked my patients what they thought it meant. How could they relate it to their lives? They engaged, and we had a very deep group discussion. Some of them revealed more information about themselves than they had ever had before, despite months of intensive therapy with me. I was shocked. It felt like Babaji's words of wisdom were a magic key that opened a secret chamber of my patients' hearts. I knew I was onto something big, and I didn't want to wait to meet Babaji. So I wrote to Dr. Chauhan with my exciting news, and he congratulated me. Within a few months, I had accumulated vacation time in an expeditious manner by working over the holidays and covering my colleagues' days off. So how it would work was that nobody wanted to work on Christmas or whatever the big U.S. holidays are, like July 4th or Thanksgiving or Christmas. So I would do it, and if I did that for somebody else, my family's like, "Are you coming home?" I'm like, "Nope." So I'd collect the holidays so I wanted to come here and see Babaji, and meet him. So I worked through all the holidays and through everything just so I could get like a few days basically to come to India, and the pay was horrible. So I didn't even have enough money to buy a ticket. I had to put it on a credit card because they pay you really bad when you're basically not licensed yet. So I covered my colleagues' days off. I didn't care if I had to work on Christmas or Thanksgiving or Easter or late nights or weekends. I just put my head down and did the extra hours. I was completely fixated on my goal of going to India to meet Babaji. Dr. Chauhan tried to convince me not to visit Babaji in the scorching hot summer, but he gave me his email anyway and told me to write to him directly, which I eagerly did. Not surprisingly, Babaji also kindly advised me against coming in July because of the unbearable heat, but I didn't care. I was intent on learning from him as soon as possible, and I booked my flight for a 2-week stay at his ashram in July 2015. After nervously climbing up the 3 flights of steep stairs to meet him, in his office. I was immediately calmed by seeing him peacefully writing at his desk. Following a brief exchange, we got to work straight away. Babaji began sharing the secrets of the ancient science of Vedic psychology. Babaji told me these teachings are not some theory that will be modified or disproved over time. These teachings are the eternal truth about the nature of the mind. And there's a nice picture of him writing in his office. The teachings come from, I was just looking for something because the story, how we wrote it is not exactly how it happened. So I want to see if I told some of you who know me that this isn't exactly how it happened. There's other things that happened that I think we put in another chapter. So that's what I was getting stumped on. I think it'll come later. The teachings come from realizations by ancient sages who, through deep meditative practices, could actually experience and see the mind, just how you or I can see the human body. He shared how there are 4 parts of the mind, and he explained in detail their characteristics. He told me that manas is the emotional mind, ahankara is our sense of identity, chitta is our unconscious mind that houses our samskaras, which drive all of our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors, and buddhi is our intelligence, which has the capacity to manage the 3 other parts of the mind. I loved the systematic explanation and could see how it would be fun and easy to teach to my patients back in the USA. After Babaji explained this, he casually asked me, if you don't know your own mind and how it works, then how can you control it? I laughed at the absurdity of the situation. Me, a psychotherapist whose expertise was in knowing the mind, yet it turns out I didn't really know much about it at all. This conversation marked the beginning of a series of meetings in which Babaji opened up a whole new world of Vedic psychology for my own healing, as well as for my clients, starting on that hot Indian summer day in 2015. So this picture, it says Babaji opening the doors of Vedic psychology to me. That picture, actually, I took of him, and that was him in his childhood home, in his village. That was the doors to that. So reflection. As my visit with Babaji came to an end, I began thinking more about what had transpired. I wondered what it would have been like if I had only been open to Dr. Chauhan's advice from the very beginning. Because honestly speaking, that was not the first time he had questioned my guru, Amma. He had actually been questioning me about her, for 1 full year, and I had been adamantly defending my choice to have her as my guru. I had been too stubborn to consider Dr. Chauhan's words, and only perceived them as attacks. I wonder if only I had seriously contemplated Dr. Chauhan's words the very first time he spoke them, maybe I could have met Babaji 1 year earlier. If only I had been humble enough to consider that I might not be right, maybe I could have learned a lot more in my life. If only I had approached my life with an open mind and not seen other people's questioning of my choices as an attack, but instead as an interesting conversation. It makes me wonder how many other times in my life I've missed out on important opportunities because of my pride. I wonder how many times I've shut down and defended myself instead of opening up and expanding my knowledge. So the lesson I learned was that every criticism is not an attack. It may be an opportunity to learn and grow. So that's this chapter. There's more I can share, but what do you guys think? Do you have any insights or questions or anything?
I remember how we were on Zoom when you came the first time. How you were sitting on the stairs.
Oh yeah.
And you're telling me how it was.
Oh
and
yeah.
you managed the heat. I mean, it's quite amazing.
It was very hot here.
You were so
AC.
determined.
I was so determined. There's more parts to this story, but I don't think I think the next one is when it's going to be actually when I took Diksha. I think no, that's a jealous one. So I have to review it again but yeah, I don't want to tell stuff that happened, but I also kind of want to do because the whole story. Because here I'm not talking about taking Diksha. I'm talking about this. So there's something that happened before this, obviously, which was when the first time I met him and took Diksha, and that is in here, but it's just not in the order that I thought. It's the next one. The jealous one? Okay, so that's coming, and then I'll tell more. So it's reversed, but I think that the editor had made it flow like that, But yeah, I remember that first time because I already knew you. I already met you at the very beginning, right?
Yeah.
And we were already talking on
Babaji
Zoom
had
regularly.
told me about you.
Yeah.
And then he sent me some of your writings. The first thing was that about the mosquitoes, how
Oh, yeah.
Babaji had malaria.
Yeah.
And how you made a story out of it for the kids. That was quite amazing.
I'll bring that. I was thinking of when I get to the kids thing. So what happened was that when I first came, I only came for 2 days, right? Just for Diksha and his Mahante. His Mahante was like, my Diksha was the day before that. So I came, I met Jaya first. And then I won't tell too much, but I had to wear sari for the first time in my life, and go take Diksha, And then the next day, and I met Kamala. Kamala came up and she said, I need a pineapple. Can you go to town and get me a pineapple? And I'm like, what? Huh? It was because of the Mahante. It was the day before, so I think you were really trying to manage a huge thing for her. And then with Jaya, I met you that night before Diksha. I arrived that day around 3, and then I came and met you, and then Babaji was walking by, and he was just like, get a sari. And I'm like, wait, what? Because it's not that I was like part of ISKCON or part of some spiritual society that we had been like in association, nothing. It was just that Dr. Chauhan was like hammering me for a year, and then when I finally cracked and said yes, I'll do it, he was like great, and then he booked the taxi, and I was on my way. So there was not a lot of like I didn't know exactly what I was getting into in a lot of ways, but so it was just kind of like I met you, and then Jaya was like, helping me get a sari. I came and met you in the morning, and in the morning, and then I took Diksha. But because it was his Mahante, then the next day the family was already there, like Lata and Sushila, and those guys I knew, his family members for a few years before. So they were like waiting for me, and the whole thing was very interesting, the whole experience. And then after Diksha, I think I met you because I didn't even know him. I hadn't even been in touch with him by email or anything. So
We were in email contact. We had so many questions about the whole just and all these things which are new to you. So,
everything,
and about Babaji, about what he knows. You thought he's like all knowing, knows about the
Can
past
you read
lives
the mind
and all
or can
that.
you pass it?
So and then we were in contact over Zoom, and then the first time we met was here, I think, probably in 2015.
Yeah.
At the
We were in touch for a long
because
time, though.
Yeah.
We were in touch for at least 6 months, I remember, regularly.
Yeah. We met here.
Here.
Yeah.
So all that is coming out. But it's very interesting to read it 10 years later, my experience and how, I would say how green I was, how basically I didn't know anything, All I know is that when I saw him on the YouTube, I'm like, okay, I'm done. I remember I called Dr. Chauhan, I said, okay, I'm done. He's like, what? I don't know if I put that in here, but he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, I'm done with Amma. He's like, you watched one video? I go, yep. And he was like, what do you mean? I said, I don't know. He's just very peaceful and calm, and what he said made sense. I'm ready. And he and I had, Amma, you can buy her blessed like jewelry and things. If she wears like a ring, a necklace, or some cloth, then when you go to her events, all of the things that she's worn are like prasaded. You can purchase them, you know. So a year before that, I had bought, before I even knew of Babaji really, I had purchased a pretty ring that had a very light green gemstone in there, you know. And I wore it every day because I was like, this is blessed by my guru, this is so cool, you know. So I wore it every day. But the day, see, I was staying at Babaji's sister's house for 1 week, you know, before I came into Diksha. And I was just hanging out with the family in our normal way, you know. We weren't talking about Vrindavan, Bhakti, Babaji, nothing. We were just talking about Ayurveda and doing the normal things, you know. But so every day I was going to the clinic, you know, going to the school, the Ayurveda clinic. And the day before I was coming here to take Diksha, I was walking from Sushila's house to the clinic, and I had that pretty ring on. It was that color, John, of your, you know, very light, pretty green. I forgot what that kind of gemstone's called. And I was walking along, and I went like that, and the whole ring, I watched it fly off my finger, you know? And I just let it go. To me, that was representative of saying goodbye to my guru. I just let it go. I threw it like it was falling off, and I just threw it. To me, that was like, okay, I'm ready to take Diksha now. Whatever that means, I didn't really know, but I knew it meant I'm having a new guru now. So that was very symbolic that the stone was like flying off. It was like this kind of a big nice stone. So the stone was like I saw it in slow. The stone was like flying off, and I took the metal part and just threw it. So I think I was ready to take Diksha, even though I didn't know what I was getting into. All this ahankara. Somebody's online wants to say something. I can't read it. Who? Bhadra. Welcome, Bhadra. Haribo. We can't hear you. Okay, sorry, Bhadra. We got new speakers, special speakers. So Vilas is just making sure that.
Heard me?
Okay, now we can hear you. Yeah. Thank you, Vilas. You got it. Nice speakers.
Okay.
No.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Jessica, for sharing your story. It's really a privilege also to hear a book read by the author. I think it's a wonderful experience. But I have a question. I mean, you perceive Dr. Chauhan's suggestions that you meet Babaji and you hear his lessons and everything as an attack. And I was thinking, because I had this experience with when in my therapeutic process with you, that sometimes you said something that I felt not as attack, but I felt like super uncomfortable, you know. So I think this is also part of the hankara. It's like part of, I don't know if it was your identity or sense of identity also attached or linked to you being a disciple of Amma.
Yeah, definitely.
It's also part of why you perceive that criticism as an attack.
Yeah, because I had dedicated like 5 years. I mean, I was when she would come to the U.S., I would like fly to New Mexico, then I'd fly to San Francisco, I'd go to Boston, I would follow her around with a group of people, you know. I was like really into it. It wasn't that I would just see her once a year, you know. I went to her ashram in South India, so I was really into it. So for somebody to be like, drop her, you know, I was like, he doesn't know anything about her. He doesn't know about anything about my dedication to her and to that path or anything, you know. I just felt very attacked and criticized. Like, he didn't say, like, tell me about Amma and what do you like about, nothing. He was just like, what, is she reading the scriptures? And I'm like, why are those important? Come on. Because don't forget, I also grew up atheist. I grew up with my parents. It's not that I already was reading the Holy Bible or something. I had no religious background, zero. So to me, I didn't understand why you need to read the scriptures. I thought it was good enough I had a guru. That's huge, coming from an atheist family. Do you know what I mean? So yes, I felt very kind of attached to Amma and very attacked. And that's my ahankara. That was my identity. I felt proud, you know, that I was a disciple of Amma. I was a devotee. You know, I was into that group. And for him to just like cut it at the root, to just be like, with 1 or 2 hard questions and that's it, you know? Yeah. So it was my identity, was being attacked.
Looking back, do you think that was the best way to deal with it, or could there have been another way how he could have done it without
That's a good question.
hurting you?
Yeah, I think so. Right? What do you think, Ladali? What could he have done? You know Dr. Chauhan. What could he have done?
I mean, I was thinking about that,
Yeah.
actually. I was thinking, oh, what they did is a direct attack to her ankara.
Yeah.
That's exactly the
Yeah.
contrary of
Yeah.
what you're teaching us.
Yeah,
So I was wondering, why have they been so harsh with her?
yeah.
I'm surprised, actually. I didn't, that. So definitely, it seems to me it was not the right way, you know, to question you or to know more about the relationship of your guru, and then maybe softly.
Ease his way in, you know.
Yeah, I mean, they right away. So.
Yeah, I think definitely he could have done it in a softer way. Like maybe be more curious about what I did like about her.
And get to know you better as well.
And then help me by asking me questions for me to realize what I didn't know. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. I think Babaji's style is a little different.
Yeah.
He always confirms what one is doing. He's doing it very subtly.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, he encourages people to do what they want, and at the same time, he
plants a seed of doubt, a little small seed that you might doubt, right?
Yeah. So, but he's not confrontational in that sense that you feel like that you feel resistant. Because if you feel resistant, then it creates a samskara.
Right, and then you dig in your heels, which is why I think it took a year. I was just like, no, Amma's great, What were you going to say, Mohini? It's a good question.
I was also just wondering on these points, did Babaji approve this behavior of his brother?
I don't know if they have that kind of relationship. You know what I mean?
No, can you repeat again?
The brother is like a full-grown man, so I don't think Babaji approves his brother's behavior. Do you know what I mean? I don't think he even knows about it.
And is he still doing like this, like pushing people to Babaji?
I don't think so. I honestly, I talked about it with Dr. Chauhan since then, He doesn't do it. I talked about him actually, and process what the whole thing was that happened. What actually happened was that we were working together for a few years. And without even knowing about Babaji, I had a desire to move to India, period. I wanted to move to India. And I wanted to do something with Ayurveda. And that's why I was working with Dr. Chauhan, but we couldn't figure out how I can live in India and do Ayurveda. We were trying to think. I even wrote a proposal for him when I was there one time, a detailed proposal. Okay, I'll live in Faridabad, but I don't want to live by myself in India. Can I live at your guys' house? I mean, we were trying over quite a period of time for me to get here, So I think he was also kind of frustrated because we couldn't figure it out, And so he told me later on, if you take Diksha from Babaji, you won't leave him. But a lot of Westerners come and they do Ayurveda and then they just drop it. So his idea was more like, okay, let me help you get more aligned spiritually, let me help you get more connected to the Guru, and then also for you to be more stable and fixed and not be like, oh, I'll do Ayurveda here, and if it doesn't work with you, Dr. Chauhan, I'll just go down and do it with Amma. If it doesn't work with Amma, I'll find some place in the Himalayas. I think he was doing it from a very good place, seeing that I knew India and I knew Ayurveda, but I wasn't that picky about with who. And I think he was maybe trying to help me get fixed. And he thought, okay, I got a secret weapon named Babaji. And if you get hooked onto Babaji, you won't leave Babaji, then you won't leave me, and we'll really get some good work done, kind of thing. So I don't mean to paint him in a bad light either. I mean, he did everything really out of so much love and care for me. And seeing that I was kind of struggling in the U.S. in that job. And my family, I have 3 sisters. They all got married. They all had kids. So I didn't really have they all had their own nuclear family. So I wasn't really part of anything anymore. My dad had died. So I wasn't in great shape, So I think it was very good what he did. And also he tried for a year. So I'm telling you the part, trying to make it funny of how harsh he had to be, but that's after a year of conversations. So, if somebody doesn't catch it, eventually you have to hit them on the head with the frying pan. So that's also part of it, that I'm kind of pulling out pieces, but he wasn't really harsh, actually. If you heard all my stubborn ways of what I was saying back. Anything else that came up for you guys when you heard it?
May I say something else, Jessica?
Sure.
That, for me, it's also like an example of how difficult it is to change our ahankara, no? Because it's like, I remember in Job Digestion, Babaji was mentioning all the time, you synthesize your ego all the time. It means that your ahankara, when you start this bhakti yoga process, your ahankara will transform, but it's so hard.
It's so hard.
Really, it's very difficult.
Yeah.
It takes time. So it's also like being patient and kind of tolerant with the uncomfortable sensation of my ahankara transforming.
Yeah.
Something.
Yeah, that's good, Bhadra, that's true. And it's also this whole idea of realizing, oh, I have something called an ahankara, and when it's uncomfortable, it's probably a good thing. You know, it's like, ooh, that means it's transforming. Like you said, okay, now let me stay with that. Let me try to introspect and not get mad at the other person, attack the other person, or blame the other person, and see that this is a good thing for me. You know? Yes, Kamala.
Exactly, I wanted to reach this point because now in the last part, but the lesson learned, actually this is the outcome of a process that you went through completely, you have embraced, because not taking every criticism as an attack is something like, is a point that has to be become ripe and mature with the time, with the experience, because the first thing that ahankara does when somebody is saying something contrary that we don't like is immediately becoming defensive.
Yeah.
And this process I experience myself is like in a fraction of a second. It's not that you think about it and immediately happen.
Yeah.
So then this is basically is a fruit, is the result of a big work, and also recognizing it and taking it as an opportunity to learn and grow is like the cream. I mean, is the hard work in order to come to this point and even say this.
It's a hard one.
Yeah, that's why. Thank you for your experience, for sharing your experience, like, making us thinking.
Yeah. Anything else? Good. Okay. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mata. I was meaning to sorry, this is my first reading, but I was really inspired by the book. I've asked questions in the chat here so you can see the question I was going to ask.
Okay.
But I was interested in this conundrum that many devotees, even in Gaudiya Vaishnavism, face where whether you call it fate or destiny, you meet some guru and you may practice for some time, and then eventually over time, we don't know whether it is one's own illusion or one's actual advancement, that they meet other personalities, other gurus, maybe in the same sampradaya, who may seem more advanced. And then they struggle with this question of, oh, wait, should I be loyal because I was first introduced by someone? Or, oh wait, this is an opportunity to advance, so maybe I should move on, so to speak.
Yeah.
And I think you went through that situation but you were able to easily accept the fact that Amma would no longer serve you. So I'm wondering, how do other devotees who may be facing such a conundrum, maybe say initiated in some branch of the sampradaya, but maybe may have found someone who's more elevated, how do they deal with that? Because it's an intense struggle internally. I've spoken to several devotees.
Yeah, I agree. I think I've been hearing it the whole 10 years I've been here, Many people struggle with that, and I've heard that question asked so many times to Babaji, it's a very common question. But I don't want to speak, for him or answer for him, but you're right, it's a very common question and a very difficult struggle. What to do about that? Okay, I think we're good. Thank you guys all for being here. I'll see you next week. We'll keep going. Haribol. Haribol.
Haribol.
Haribol. Thank you.